welcome, and welcome to our new space, or our remodeled space. I will just make note that we do also have new mics and new controls, and so I say this because we have practiced, but we really are trying not to make a show of it tonight to entertain you. But if we do, it's because we're learning. So thank you for being here this evening. And Ms. Beam, would you start with roll?
Mr. Babbitt?
Here.
Mr. Boyd?
Here.
Mrs. Johan?
Here.
Mr. Kuhn? Mrs. Reagan?
Here.
Mrs. Steele?
Here.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Here. At this time, I would invite Cub Scout Pack 3412 to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to
And what school do we have represented tonight?
We currently are out of Havencroft, Ridgeview, and Central Elementary Schools.
Thank you, Scouts. At this time, I would welcome a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
The motion was made by Julie Steele and seconded by Brad Boyd.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Johan?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0. And Ms. Krupa.
Yes. Well, good evening, everybody. As you can see, we have a packed house tonight, which is my favorite. So we are very excited to welcome all of our distinguished guests and honorees. And without further ado, we can just dive right in. So tonight we are proud to recognize the 23-24 Presidential Service Award winners. And I would like to invite our volunteers, along with our Director of Community Development, Heather Schoonover, and volunteer coordinators Pam Wolf, Leah Hargan, and Susie Zimmerman up to the front, as well as all building principals who are here to support their volunteers. Volunteers, come on up. Well, for 32 years, our district volunteers have served in a variety of support roles, from lunch buddies to mentors and more. And during the 23-24 school year, 622 community patrons dedicated nearly 23,000 hours of service. We are so proud to recognize our honorees tonight, who are our Presidential Service Award winners, and we're going to recognize them at 3 different levels. Our Bronze Award winners have donated 100 to 249 hours of service. We also have Silver Award winners, and they have donated 250 to 499 hours of service. And our Gold Service Award winners have dedicated more than 500 hours of service. So to begin, we are proud to recognize our Bronze Service Award winners, and that includes Wendy Andrew, Kathy Benny, Jeannie Bond, Lisa Brudos, Cynthia Burichter, Debbie Cooley, Hugh Forbes, Nancy Geiger, Melissa Hanlon, Greg Hartman, Steve Hill, Gloria Hinduja, Marianne Hinkle, Susie Kaminsky, Jean Mahaffey, Kathy Menser, Sue O'Connor, Mary Pacey, Jan Pitcairn, Barbara Plattner, Barbara Plowman, Leslie Schmitz, Judy Swans, Mason Schubkagel, Beth Sykes, Marcia Stoker, Jan Wessels, Amy Williams, Jane Wilson, Linda Winter, David Young, and Susie Zimmerman. What a wonderful problem to have, right? So many volunteers. At our silver level, we have Linda Albee, Kay Beck, Nancy Brooks, Michael Christensen, Claire Eney, Jerry Sapp, Alice Smotherman, Debbie Wallace, and Sue Zawicki. Our Gold Service Award winners are Ken Johnson and Jan Wise. And then the President's Volunteer Service Award Lifetime Achievement Award is a special award that recognizes individuals who have completed more than 4,000 hours of volunteer service over the course of their lifetime. Tonight, we are honored to recognize Jan Wise. Jan, can you wave? Yay! So Jan will receive a personalized certificate, an official memento, and a congratulatory letter from the President of the United States. So we are so proud of all of you. Thank you guys for your service, and I can see you're all primed for a picture, so put those smiles on.
Okay, look right here. 1, 2, 3. Let's just do one more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, guys. I believe that you guys have certificates that you will receive from Heather outside in the foyer, so. Well, as that wonderful group makes their way out, we are also pleased to recognize tonight Trudy Credit Union as a valued partner of Olathe Public Schools. So Heather, stay on up here, and I'd also like to invite Erin Beldner, Chief Executive Officer, Emily Latta, Olathe Business Development Officer, Sarah Freeman, Vice President of Business Development, and Kaylee Sell, Vice President of the Lawrence Market, to join us up front, along with our Olathe Public Schools Foundation Executive Director Cindy Von Felt, Olathe Northwest High School Principal Chris Zook, and Prairie Trail Middle School Principal Jenna Jones. Awesome. Okay. Upon opening a Trudy branch in Olathe, the company jumped right in to support district staff and students in an annual partnership. They have sponsored every major Olathe Public Schools Foundation fundraiser, including the recent Olathe New Educator event, and their support since this past year totals $23,700. Trudy is also an adopt-a-school partner with Prairie Trail Middle School and Olathe Northwest High School, and their staff takes the time to be at the 21st Century Academy Skills for Success program to complete mock interviews with students and share career opportunities. We're so grateful for the many ways Trudy supports Olathe Public Schools as a valued partner, so please join me in congratulating Trudy. Wonderful. Thank you. Up next, I'm excited to invite Westview Elementary Principal Cindy Capeller and her staff members up to the front. So Westview was named as a 2023 Challenge Award recipient by the Confidence in Kansas Public Education Task Force. 97 schools were named across the state for outstanding achievement and uncommon accomplishments based on Kansas assessment results in math and reading. The awards recognize Kansas schools that are making a notable difference in student achievement despite facing significant challenges in their school population. Of course, this comes as no surprise to us, as Westview has been recognized before for their incredible achievements, receiving the Challenge Award in 2021 and 2022. So just add it to the list. We are so proud of Westview and know that this honor is a testament to their amazing staff and students. Congratulations, you guys. Perfect. And to round out our recognitions this evening, we have several spring sports state champions that we would like to recognize. And I would like to note that this past spring was one of our winningest seasons of spring sports in recent years, so buckle up. We've got lots of kiddos to celebrate. And first, we will start with our friends at Olathe East. So I'd like to invite Olathe East sophomore Irene Getia up to the front, along with her principal Carrie Lane and coach Ryan Euchre, as well as district athletic director Matt Johnson. In May, Irene was recognized as the 6A state diving champion at the 2024 Swim and Dive State Championships. This championship title capped off a successful season for Irene, filled with new school records and more. So let's hear it for Irene on this outstanding accomplishment. Congratulations, Irene. Next up, we're excited to honor our student athletes from Olathe West. So to begin, let's invite up the boys golf team along with their coaches and athletic director, Pat Butler. The Olathe West boys golf team was named as the 6A state champion team this past spring. The team trailed fellow Olathe Northwest High School by a stroke midway through the competition, but ultimately finished victorious by shooting a two-day 583. Congratulations to these athletes. Okay. I'd like to invite your track and field athletes up to the front now as well. Along with your coaches. So the Olathe West boys track team was named the 6A state champion at the state track and field events. In addition to this team title, there were several student athletes who earned individual titles. So a special congratulations to Dayton Richardson for winning the 400-meter race, as well as the 4x100 relay team made up of Braden Gillum, Bryce Austin, Dylan Valesco, and Tevin Gassaway, and the 4x800 relay team of Gunnar Hornung, Isaac Schilling, Logan Montgomery, and Owen Deideker, who also took first place. And then in girls track, Bree Newport won the 1,600-meter race, and the girls 4x800 team, made up of Jasmine Steid, Colby Brown, Lainey Clements, and Kaylin Willingham, also took first place. So, wow, West, way to go. Yeah, parents, come get your photos. Okay, congratulations, you guys. All right, South, you're up next. We are proud to honor several Olathe South athletes. So Principal Sean Demery, Athletic Director Andrew Miller, the Olathe South baseball team, and all coaching staff head on up to the front. This spring, the Falcon baseball team ended the season with a 10-2 victory over Blue Valley West to capture the state title. The Falcons entered the playoffs as a 14th seed, but were able to catch fire and win 5 games in a row to take the crown. In addition to the Falcon baseball team, they also had a track and field champ who was unable to join us tonight, but did want to take this opportunity to recognize Dylan Plath, who took the state title in the 800-meter race. Way to go, Falcons. We're so proud of you guys. All right, thank you guys, congratulations. And finally, I'd like to invite all Olathe Northwest softball and track athletes up to the front, along with their coaches and principal Chris Zook and athletic director Steve Page. Oh, we can start with the girls' track team. Yep, the Olathe Northwest girls' track team earned the 6A state title this spring. This was certainly an exciting feat for these student athletes, but especially for graduate Val Galligan. In addition to joining her fellow classmates and winning the girls' team title, Val also won individual state titles in shot put, discus, and javelin. So a big congratulations to our girls track and field. We may have to scrunch in. We may have to do some rows.
Okay, scoot in. 1, 2, 3.
Any parents want to take pics? Good. And we got one. Okay. Awesome. All right. And finally, last but not least, along with our girls track team, the Ravens softball team had a victorious season. So come on up. Our Ravens softball team had a victorious season, earning the 6A softball title. They trailed by 2 runs as the team went up to bat in the bottom of the 5th inning, but the Ravens ultimately took the lead on the way to a 10-4 victory to win the state title. Congratulations, ladies. What a wonderful way to end the season. All right, congratulations. Well, that concludes our very packed recognition, so thank you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Grubaugh, and congratulations to all of our athletes. It was so exciting last spring when we kept seeing the results come from all of the high schools in so many spring sports. So congrats to the coaches, ADs, principals, and also a thank you to the volunteers, of course. What would we do without our senior serving schools and all of the volunteers? At this point in the evening, we will move to informational presentations, and we will begin with a school spotlight, Ridgeview Elementary School, Dr. Brooke Bruto. Welcome.
Good evening. I am Brooke Bruto, and I am the proud principal of Ridgeview Elementary, and it's an honor to share several points of pride within our Ridgeview community for the spotlight this evening. Our school is home. I'm going to try to figure out how to work this. Here we go. There we go. Our school is home to 249 students, and we have 2 sections per grade from early childhood through 5th grade. We also host Jumpstart for the North Feeder pattern and have recently added a center-based resource classroom, which has been a fabulous addition to our building. This evening, I'd like to highlight 5 points of pride for our building. I want to highlight our wonderful diversity, our Panthers, also known as our students, our collaborative families, our incredible team, and our amazing community partnerships. At Ridgeview, we are proud of our diversity. Ridgeview is a wonderfully diverse community. We have over 108 English language learners, and our student population represents 7 different home languages, including Spanish, French, and Berber. We believe that diversity is our strength, and our students who speak more than one language have a superpower. This is a visual representation of our diverse student body that is an asset to our building. Another point of pride is our amazing students. We offer a variety of student clubs to foster a strong sense of belonging at our building. The clubs meet before and after school, and additionally, our Panther Prides, which include all students, meet monthly and are composed of students from multiple grade levels. Students remain in the same Panther Pride group throughout their elementary education at Ridgeview. Our students are also learning about our positive expectation matrix. Our matrix has 3 pillars: be respectful, be safe, and be a leader. Our team uses the common language of our matrix to teach our students about the expectations in areas of our school. Recognizing our students for being safe, respectful, and a leader is one of the best parts of my job. And on Fridays, our team members nominate students and highlight the actions that earned them that reward. Students also work to fill up punch cards, 20 punches each, which they can exchange for an experience, not an item, with a team member. These experiences help foster a sense of belonging within our school community. For example, students can choose experiences such as lunch with Mrs. Maria. They can also enjoy a board game with Mrs. Riley, and of course, my personal favorite, popsicle with Dr. Bruto. Our students also showed significant academic growth our last school year, particularly in CAP for math and English language arts. Another highlight is the 96% of our kindergartners demonstrated either significant or expected growth in early reading fast bridge assessments from fall to spring. Next, we're proud of our families. We're proud of their collaboration, their partnership with our team, and engagement in their child's educational growth. Our families are actively involved in Side Council, which meets monthly. Each grade level hosts family engagement activities each quarter to which families are invited to celebrate learning in their child's classroom. We continuously seek ways to involve our families in our school, reinforcing that their partnership is crucial for a successful school year. Our incredible team is another point of pride, and a big point of pride for me. We have 74 members who are collaborative and supportive. 30% of our team has been with Ridgeview for 15 years or more. We also have team values that guide our interactions with one another and align, of course, with the expectations we have for our students. This year, we're focusing on strengthening our Tier 1 with the adoption of wit and wisdom. We also ensuring that we are highlighting our community partnerships, enhancing our multi-tiered systems of support for English language arts, math, attendance, and social emotional supports, and incorporating cooperative learning strategies within our instruction. One characteristic that sets our team apart is our ability to collaborate effectively. We believe that every member of our team has the potential to impact the academic growth of our students. Ridgeview also has an incredible classified team that models flexibility and initiative daily. We're committed to the belief that all of Ridgeview students are our students, regardless of how we contribute to their day. Last, I'd like to highlight our community partnerships. Ridgeview has many community partnerships that maintain ongoing communication with our team. Our partners have a passion for community support, and they are truly magical in removing barriers for our students to access educational opportunities. We meet quarterly with quarterly, with our partners to discuss upcoming events and share the needs of the community. Our partners include Church of the Resurrection, Redemption Church, Olathe Westland, and of course, the Olathe Foundation. Ridgeview also has 37 volunteers and mentors that come in and out of our classrooms, eat lunch with our students, or take part in our script pals with 3rd and 4th graders. Our team also works with Heather Schoonover, the Director of Community Development, to ensure that appropriate support is offered to families in need. Thanks to these partnerships, school supplies were provided for all of our students at Ridgeview this year. Throughout the year, Ridgeview families that are new to the country or those who have relocated to Olathe receive beds, clothing, groceries. Our partners are passionate about serving our families and removing those barriers for our students. These 5 points of pride are why I am the proud principal at Ridgeview Elementary, and we are Ridgeview proud. For the conclusion of our school spotlight this evening, I had to include something with our students. So I'd like to share 2 videos with you. The first video features our 2nd grade Panthers thanking our front office, whom I refer to as the powerhouse of our building. The same group of students also recorded a song for you, our Olathe Board of Education members, which will be shared in our 2nd video. This was written and directed by Ridgeview's general music educator, Mrs. Dana Palou, and library media specialist, Mrs. Dawn Mercer. Thank you again for the opportunity to highlight the amazing team and community at Ridgeview Elementary.
Yeah, ready? Here we go. Thank you very much for all you do. Thank you very much for being at you. Thank you very much for having smile. Thank you very much for going the extra mile. Thank you very much for helping me. We love to have you at our meeting. Thank you. We love you. Okay, good job. Yeah, ready? Here.
And our special video to our Olathe board members.
Thank you, Dr. Bruto. Does anyone have a question before you walk away? Please thank them for the special video for us. Yeah. Our next presentation is our Human Resources team, growing our classified staff voice. Dr. Sig, thank you.
As Dr. Sig makes her way up, I may make a couple of comments. The first one is to thank Dr. Sig for her efforts last semester related to the classified staff roundtable. She really led our group of leaders in getting that information, and certainly understood the importance of this work and just did a phenomenal job leading it. So I just wanted to thank Dr. Sig for all of her efforts, and she'll recognize others, I know, as she goes through her presentation tonight, because it was a team effort, but Dr. Sig is the one that kind of led that up for us and then facilitated the gathering of information, what have you. So thanks, Dr. Sig.
So good evening. We're excited to be here with you tonight to share an update on the work we've gone through over the past year in growing the voice of our classified staff, which we know is critical and important members of our team. And so I'm joined tonight by Michelle Morris and Anjanette Tolman and Travis Palangi, who will share some of this insight with you as well. But before we dive into the details of that work that we undertook, I thought it would be helpful to start first with a little bit of foundation and background of understanding of who makes up our classified employees. We sometimes throw around terms, and I thought it might be helpful to give a little better picture when we talk about classified staff members, who we're referring to. So you can see here on the chart provided, this was as of August 27th. We had 1,848 classified staff members, and I give you the exact date because our HR team and our department leaders continue to do great work in recruiting and hiring for any of our classified positions that are open, so this number is kind of ever changing. You can see in the pie chart here that a large percentage, over half of our classified staff members, are comprised of what we call instructional support staff. That is going to be mainly our paraeducators that support our special education programs. And that is approximately 966 of the 1,848 classified staff members. The next largest group of our classified staff is going to be our custodial, maintenance, and ground staff members, and then from there our food services, and then you can see our HR, financial services, communications, kind of our administrative support teams, and then our technology support. So when we think about 1,850 approximately staff members, we know that that's a large group, and when we talk about growing their voice, we certainly wanted this to be a two-way dialogue, but when you have that many staff members, that of course has some innate challenges. And so as we undertook the task of finding a way to provide that opportunity, we had a few things that we had to consider, but then we also knew there were things that we really wanted to achieve in this process. And so one of the first challenges, of course, was just the large number of staff members, but then also, as I just shared with you, the classified role, the jobs within those roles are very different. And so when we talk about someone who's supporting students in the classroom as a paraeducator, that role looks very different from the person who is, maybe responsible for, the grounds and the facilities. And because of that and the very job duties that they have, it also means that they have really diverse and differing needs. But we knew that even with that great deal of diversity across those staff member groups, we really wanted to achieve the opportunity for there to be a voice to those individuals and for us to be able to connect with and know when we talk about our paraeducators, what are the things that they love about their jobs and what's going really well. But on the opposite side of that, what do we need to work on? What do we need to make better? So having that open dialogue was really important to us because we wanted to have information that we could then truly go and make change and take action with. And then lastly, one of our goals was to also kind of look down the road at where we would like this to go. And one of the things we really wanted to be able to do was also offer opportunities for there to be learning embedded in these dialogues, because we knew that when we talk about classified staff members and being able to connect with them and offer opportunities for professional growth, that is sometimes a challenge. And so we really wanted to be able to focus in on that as well. So as we were kind of pondering and wrapping our heads around how do we go about doing this, our HR team partnered with our department and district leaders, and we developed what we call roundtable groups. And you can see listed here the various kind of roundtables that we created. And we really put those employee groups together, but then also wanted to make them kind of manageable sizes, because if we were going to have a dialogue, we knew that there was going to be a need for there to be a little bit smaller group, if you will. And so we have to give a huge shout out and thanks to a whole host of people that you can see on the right-hand side of this screen who dove right in with us and said, absolutely, we want to hear from these individuals. And we knew that looking at those department and senior leaders, that those would be the individuals that would be able to take that information and insight and be able to then institute change and support those staff members. And so they were all in with us, and so we really appreciated their help. So you can see on the left-hand side there, we created a couple of different groups of our officer or administrative support staff and divided that into kind of the elementary and secondary worlds. And Ms. Morris, along with Erica Razzo, and then Justin Howe and Kathy Donovan from our HR team, led those conversations. And then when we took a look at our buildings here right on Black Bob and the administrative support in those buildings, we again enlisted the help of Mr. Howe in our HR department, but then also Dr. Reeves was a part of those conversations as well. And then in the custodial operations service world, Travis Palangi and Hassan Yexaman were key parts in leading those discussions. And then, of course, an important part of our classified staff is our food services staff, and Scott Kingery and his team were great helps in having those conversations. And then, of course, that large group that we talked about, our paraeducators and instructional support staff, and Ms. Tolman, as I had mentioned earlier, along with Dr. Martin from our special education team, and then Kim Hawkins, who, of course, leads up our early childhood programs, were really instrumental in opening up the dialogue. And we broke that group into a couple of different subgroups as well to kind of keep those numbers more manageable. So I've talked a lot about kind of how we divided, if you will, but then in terms of a format and scheduling, we began these in third quarter of last year. So we met for the first time in third quarter and then did a follow-up in a second meeting fourth quarter. Because we had our groups by job or employee group, if you will, we were kind of able to schedule those to accommodate those different varying work schedules. But we also offered compensation for our staff members' time. And then, as I mentioned, our senior leaders led those meetings. So again, going back to that question of how do we open up a dialogue and have a conversation, as we were kind of discussing our vision for these as an HR team, we talked a lot about something called stay interviews, which we talk a lot about in our HR world, that are really individual conversations you have with staff members to get an idea of why someone stays in a position or in the department that they're in. But we knew that with 1,850 people, we were not going to be able to do individual meetings like that. And so we really took a look at some of those stay interview questions and identified 5 that we felt like would really give us helpful information to move forward with. And then started brainstorming how we gather this feedback. And I have to give another shout out to Jen Kennedy and our instructional technology support team. She was hugely helpful in putting together a Nearpod activity that allowed our classified staff to come to these roundtable conversations and use either their cell phone or a laptop that we provided to truly respond to these questions. And you can see from the 5 questions we have up here, they're everything from, what makes you excited to come to work every day, to how would you describe your school or department to somebody that was maybe thinking about joining the team. That infamous question of if you had a magic wand, what would be one thing you could change or would like to change about your job? I think we all have a moment where we dream of having that question brought to us. But then also we wanted to know the other side of that. What are ways that you maybe feel like you're not supported in your work? Because we wanted to dive into that as well. And then, of course, what makes you stay? So after having all of that kind of dialogue back in that format, we were able to identify kind of the top 3 responses to each of these 5 questions and get a little more background on them. And then we, in those roundtable conversations, conversations, broke into some small table groups. And we're able to really gather feedback from those small table groups in terms of, tell us more about, why these were maybe the top 3 responses that we got. And really that question too of, what ideas do you have that would make your job better? Because the people in the room leading those conversations are truly the people that can make those changes and help support that moving forward. And that was a part of the conversation we wanted to have included as well, was for our leaders, senior leaders, to be able to come back and say, hey, we made this change. Did this help, or were there unintended negative consequences? But we wanted to continue to have that dialogue as well. So as we gathered up all of that information, of course, it kind of then leads to this flow, if you will, of being able to kind of have the feedback and be able to look at what we might be able to do in terms of changes and then continue that conversation. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Morse, who's going to share with you some of the highlights of what we learned from these conversations and kind of where we're going as we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Sig. So I'd like to take a few minutes to share with you some of the commonalities that we found globally as we met with all of our groups. So let's start with the strengths. The question that we asked, what do you look forward to when you come to work every day? Hands down, it was colleagues. The Olathe Public Schools, they're so fortunate to have such strong teams in all of our schools and all of our departments. And let's be honest, we all know that there are times in our life when we may spend more time with our work families than we do our own families. So to know that they enjoy coming to work and having the interaction with their colleagues, to know that they're supported through the challenging times as well as the fun times, I think that's incredibly impactful. The close second was making a difference. And depending on your position in the district, that's going to look different for everyone. For example, the secretary who greets the students each and every time they come to the office for a plethora of reasons. Maybe they forgot their lunch and mom drops it off. For the nurse, who helps our kids when they have their tummy aches and their runny noses. To our kitchen staff who provide nourishing meals for our students, and quite frankly, maybe for some of them, it could be the only meal they have that day. To our custodians who provide a clean learning environment for our students. Our paras and aides who work tirelessly and so closely with our students who need that little added support. Our tech staff who keep us up and running. Thank you, Josh, and your team. And look at the incredible boardroom. Our security staff, who keep us safe. Everybody makes a difference. And I know for me personally, I'm pretty sure I can recite all the names of the teachers that I've had throughout my many years of school. However, I also remember Mr. Blaylock, my custodian at Woodsonia Elementary. He was always there. He was in the lunchroom. He was at recess. He was everywhere. And so he was very impactful to all of us at Woodsonia. So another strength that was shared with us from all of the groups would be the schedules. Due to the variety of classified positions that we do have in the district, that also lends itself to a variety of schedules. So you can work a year-round position or a school year position. You can work 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 hours a day. So this offers some flexibility for our parents, that allows them the opportunity to drop their child off and pick their child up after school, which can help alleviate maybe with the cost of daycare. So those schedules are so important to our classified staff. So on the flip side, let's talk about some of the needs that all of them shared with us. And it's going to come as no surprise to anyone. Compensation is always going to be mentioned. And let's be honest, if you're not Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce, who doesn't want to make more money? Whether you're working at Garmin, Target, Walmart, Amazon, FedEx, due to the rising cost of living, every penny counts. And so compensation was something that was mentioned. Another thing that was mentioned, and Dr. Sig touched on this, is professional growth. Due to the size of our district and again, the variety of positions, the hours, the schedules, it truly can be a challenge to provide professional development for all our various groups. And I will tell you, with the roundtables this year, we are committed to providing PD during that time together. So we're looking forward to that. Another piece that they shared with us was time off, and I want to clarify because working for a school district, we all know that we have lots of time off. So where else can you work and get a paid snow day? So what they specifically were referring to would be our classified folks who were in non-vacation eligible positions. So depending on their position and the length of service that they've had in the district, typically they were accrued 1 to 4 personal days per year that could be used for anything outside of medical related. In addition to that, then they also were granted sick leave. So if someone wanted to take a vacation throughout the year, they were very limited with the days that they could take off, anywhere from 1 to 4. That adds up fairly quickly. So sometimes that would lend itself to people maybe taking a sick day, but a picture would show up on Facebook where they were at Disney. So it's like, did you get sick at Disney or what? What kind of happened there? So that was something that they had shared with us. And then this next one, I feel like it's really hard and difficult to hear because this is never anyone's intent, but respect. A lot of our classified folks just don't feel that value and respect. And I will tell you, this is not unique to Olathe Public Schools. I speak with, the other directors in the other districts, and this is a common sentiment, among classified staff, because let's be honest, when we think about school districts, the first thing that comes to mind would be teachers. It's just a natural thing. We immediately go to teachers. But as we all know, our teachers could not do what they do without the support of our classified staff. So it's incredibly important that we do better to make them feel, know, and hear how important they truly are and what an integral part they are in a child's education. So let's talk about what we've done as a result of the feedback that we've received from these roundtables. So let's touch on compensation again. I think it's important to remember that over the course of the past 3 years, so since 2021, we have done pay enhancements to all of our classified pay groups. In addition to that, and we have you, the Board of Education, to thank, the district just received the largest pay raise it's ever received in its history of 6.3%. So thank you all for that. I can tell you that was so well received and so impactful for our classified staff. That being said, the district also acknowledges that we need to continue to work on pay. And administration recognizes that as well and are committed to making additional enhancements as budget allows. As we know, with the living cost continuing to rise, our compensation needs to follow suit so that we can retain our employees, because our employees want to be here. That's the common thing. They want to be here. They love this job. They love making the impact. They love being with the kids. So we want to keep them here. Paid time off, as you're aware, the district just approved paid time off for certified staff and our non-vacation eligible classified staff. This now allows them the flexibility to take those Disney vacations and post those pictures and not worry about, getting questioned from the principal. That was incredibly well received too, so thank you for that. Schedules. For some of our challenging positions to fill, we are kind of dipping our toe into doing job shares. That has its challenges as well, but we are trying with some of these, maybe para positions that we just can't find somebody to work 5 or 6 hours. We're trying to split it, do a 4 and 4. As I shared with you, that does have its challenges too, but it is something that we are working on. And then, as Dr. Sig shared, we will continue our roundtables for this school year. This provides our classified folks a voice. They feel heard. It's insightful for us to hear from them and know what changes and what things we need to do better. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Anja to talk about Paris.
You betcha. Thank you. Good evening. When Dr. Sig asked me to speak just a little bit about the roundtable experience that I had, I was delighted because one of the first things that hit me when we started working on scheduling this was simply the number that we have of paraeducators in the district and really trying to accommodate their schedules. And so for each of our sessions, we actually held 2 different times so that people could be able to attend whatever met their schedule. And of course, It doesn't meet everybody's, but it certainly does. And so the experience for me was wonderful just simply because I got a chance to be with our paraeducators, and that just does not happen that often. I enjoy seeing them when we have our para symposium, but that's about the only time outside of walking through buildings and seeing them. And so it was fun to be able to hear from them in a more personal experience. As we kind of worked through our roundtables, the reoccurring themes were similar to what Ms. Morse explained. But one of the things that we heard was just the inability to work alongside their supervising teacher. And the reason for that would be their hours and the fact that they were kind of door to door with students and supporting students and not having time when students weren't in the building needing their help to accommodate time to sit down and collaborate. And so over the course of our learning and our processing as administrators and superintendent leadership team, we have improved our ability to accommodate that by offering a 30-minute additional time to whatever their current hours were. And just as a point of reference, in 2001, the state approved reimbursement categorical aid for teachers and paraeducators. And we're reimbursed for paraeducators for a 6.5-hour day. You should know that our paras now either work 7, 7.5, or 8 hours with this given adjustment. And so what we should be finding here after we get in a few months is the opportunity to learn from them about how that has changed their conditions. We are hopeful that this increase in hours, if they chose to do it, provides that collaboration time with their supervising teacher and other colleagues in the building, as well as kind of gaining a little bit more of that respect because they are able to be with their colleagues to attend staff meetings or potentially have some more engagement in the building outside of student contact time. And the last thing, as Ms. Morse mentioned, was professional learning. We look forward to hearing what that conversation might look like this month when we meet with them. We're going to let them drive the topics that we prepare, and we're very excited about that. As you can imagine, with the diverse numbers that we have of special educator paraprofessionals and our AIAs and our BIAs and all the other titles that we have, everybody has just a little bit different of a need based on what the type of student they work with or what grade they work with, if it's an elementary student versus a high school student. And so we expect that we'll be differentiating for that, and we're looking forward to hearing what they have to share with us. So thank you for letting me share.
Good evening. Speaking on behalf of the Operations Service Center, we were able to hold multiple roundtable meetings this past season, having multiple sessions with our service center staff and then with our custodial staff as well, offering in English and Spanish speaking sessions. And for our groups, a lot of the discussion topics that came around were professional learning. So with our future roundtable meetings we're going to be able to offer those, but then also have the conversations with them on what they want for professional learning. For example, we just had a nice large event at our service center for CPR training, and we felt that was really needed for a lot of our staff that are in the buildings as well. So that's just one of the things that we've started. The continued working conditions discussion came up, and a lot of that conversation centered around being in our buildings during breaks. And we do turn our HVAC systems in unoccupied modes. So working with our staff on a more enhanced, robust scheduling system to make sure that if they're in certain parts of the building, we will provide that for them. So we're going to continue that conversation moving forward here in the first quarter. Additional communication as well. Our communication team does a great job, but we're just going to work a little bit more internally on a service center side to make sure that we're getting all the information that we need, because sometimes staff doesn't have access to the emails, and making sure that the communication that comes from our group gets down to everybody within our department. And then continuing to work with HR on our pay enhancements. We have a lot of specialized skilled technicians and workers in our department, and making sure that We are evaluating the compensations that are out there to make sure that it's in line with the industry and what our fellow school districts are offering up as well. So we look forward to the conversations we're going to have moving forward into quarter one and improving and making sure that our staff has a voice at the roundtables and have those open and honest conversations. Thank you.
So as Travis and Anjanette and Michelle have mentioned, we are going to continue with the roundtables throughout this year. And you can see here that we will continue with organizing those by those employee groups again, and they'll continue to be led by those same district leaders. And we're planning to do those once each quarter, again, with that incorporation of the professional learning included in that. And because of that, we'll have them for an hour and a half, which will be a little bit longer. But again, really hoping that we can continue that back and forth dialogue and getting that feedback, as Travis and Anjanette mentioned, hey, you have the additional 30 minutes was offered. How is that going? What are maybe some of the challenges there that we need to help navigate? We've continued to have a lot of conversations with our general administration team so that then we can get information to our building administrators. We know our building principals are an integral part of this conversation as well. And so then providing them with this feedback. We've already done that a couple of times so that as they were planning for the start of the school year, that some of the things that we were hearing through these roundtables could be addressed, and even their beginning of the year festivities and that kind of thing. So as Michelle had mentioned, hearing that respect was one of the things that our classified staff really struggled with the most, and feeling that they weren't fully respected in their roles was not something any of us wanted to hear, and that includes our building administrators. And so they really wanted to, open that conversation and think about what kinds of things they could do differently. And sometimes it's not necessarily doing something different, it's making sure that the invitation is there and that communication is provided. I'll go back to, again, the varied and unique roles that our classified staff members fill. And so some of those individuals are never in front of a computer to see an email. And so it's really challenged some of our building principals to think about, I probably need to print this off and post it in a couple of places so that, those staff members that are working in the kitchen or our custodians see and know that we're having a lunch on this date and that kind of thing. So we, again, just so appreciate all of the support we've been given by the various district leaders, and then most importantly, by our classified staff members who took the time to come and be a part of those roundtables, and hope that they will continue to do that. And again, our hope would be that as they see that there are improvements and things that are done in response to what they're sharing with us, that will just further and continue that dialogue. But with all of that, we would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Board, do you have any questions? Ms. Steele.
Not a question, but more of a statement and kind of a shout out. I want to thank you all for this work that's so important. And your work doesn't stop, but this is so integral to what is important to you. And, in August, I think we found out that we are number 7 in the state of Kansas as one of the best employers by Forbes. And I don't hear any of you deciding to rest on those laurels. I hear words like open, honest, continue, looking forward to it, back and forth dialogue. I think each of you addressed that respect issue in a way that just kind of leaves you very unsettled, that we aren't going to be satisfied until that is different, and looking at the ways that we're going to address that. So thank you very much. This is what makes me so proud of our district, and, leaning into these hard spaces and making sure that we are our best, but also that we are creating spaces that allow the classified staff members to feel their best and to feel seen. And I think, all of us can understand that it is a desire to be seen and noticed and included, and I think we can do that. So thank you so much. Just great information. Appreciate it.
Ms. Reagan.
I just, wanted to say how impressed I am with not just, organizing and holding meetings is one degree of logistics that is, difficult and challenging. But I do think being able to take feedback, run with it, and implement change on a very tight timeline. You just started these meetings last semester, and there were already changes put in place. And I know that, as a former educator, going to different meetings, when people ask your feedback, unless the feedback is acted upon, it feels like the meeting was just an exercise. It was performative. And these do not feel that way. And you all being able to share, this is an action we've taken, is very encouraging. And I also appreciate so much of what Mrs. Steele just said, but the willingness to hear candid feedback. That takes a lot when you have as much pride as our district has, when you have as much pride in your positions and the people you supervise. And hearing the hard feedback is a challenge, and I applaud you for doing the work. And I am grateful to all of our classified staff who attended the meetings and are going to keep attending the meetings. And this is just such a wonderful initiative, and I'm very excited to see where it leads our district, because at the heart of it, this is improving education for our children. So thank you.
Broke the new table. Okay. Any other comments, boards? Dr. Tolman, I do have a question, a clarification. When you talk about the paras adding the additional 30 minutes to their day, and that's an option available to any para?
It was an option available to any para. And so if it didn't fit with their schedule because they have their own children that they needed to take or pick up or what have you, then they were not forced to take that 30 minutes. It was those that felt like this worked in their schedule and wanted to do it. So again, we're going to hope that we get some nice feedback on that and what it has meant to them. Because what I see and what I heard from our roundtables, my hope is that it targets the two things that I mentioned, which was collaboration with their supervising teacher and other colleagues to learn about the students that they're working with, most importantly. But then second of all, allowing them the potential to attend some building events that are, like a staff meeting or something that's held after school.
And I believe you also mentioned, and I recall from my time, that only a certain number of hours are reimbursed.
Yes.
So my assumption would be that the cost for this additional time compensation has fallen. It was a decision made by the district to support.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for your time tonight, too. Dr. Julie Veach and her data for the 23-24 academic year. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. I want to start by assuring you this is not the lengthy presentation it was last year. We're not going to dive quite that deep, and that is in honor of Dr. McMullen. So, but anyway, good evening, and it really is a pleasure to be here. Tonight, I do want to share with you an overview of some of our data from this past spring. So this is quite the chart when you look at this, but this really is, the whole purpose of showing you this is just to show you a wide variety of the different data that is constantly in front of us and that we are constantly looking at. I think for us, as anybody, any school system, it's all about assessment literacy. And so we want to make sure that any data that we collect, that we are using it for a purpose and it is impacting the things that we do for our students instructionally, as well as the different types of programs that we can create to respond to anything that we see here. As you may recall, last year, we really talked about how we can take any of our data and we can put it into pretty much these four groups right here when we're talking about the academic data. And so what this allows us to do is really to make sure that we are continually monitoring student progress throughout the school year, whatever that may look like. The good news for you tonight is I'm only going to quickly touch upon 2 of these categories instead of going through all 4 of them. And so I want to start just with a reminder that we do have a screening process, and FastBridge is the tool that we use for that. And by screening, it really is that whole idea that at least 3 times a year, and it is 3 times a year, not at least, but 3 times a year, we are having our students participate in the screeners to give us an idea if they are at risk for falling behind or struggling with key skills that they need in order to do well with their reading and with their math. And so for us, that's an absolutely big piece, especially a district of any size, but our size. Like, we want to make sure that we are not overlooking any student that might need any kind of support along the way. And so that is what all of this leads into for us with the screeners. And the whole purpose, I would remind anybody, is that anytime we're looking at those screeners, we use that data to help us know and be able to plan instructionally, and just to make sure that, again, student needs are being met. It's all about what's happening in that classroom and how we are responding to it. So a key question is always who participates in FastBridge. And so this first month of school, starting in late August, we have every student in grades K through 9 that are participating in the reading screening that we do. And I've listed up here for you the 4 different components that you will see within that reading screening, depending on the grade level of the student as to what they participate in. And when we look at, for example, like the early reading, that's going to be covering just like, can they recognize their letters? Can they start putting some blended sounds together? When we look at A reading, that all of our 2nd through 9th graders do, and then our 10th and 12th grade is needed, but that A reading helps us get a good measure on just their basic comprehension skills. You know, when we put that grade level text in front of them, how can they respond to that? The auto reading looks at a student's ability to decode words, and then that CBM reading, that helps us measure fluency for a student, which is a combination of accuracy and rate. So both of those pieces of information can go to teachers to help them make, whether that's a whole class decision on some interventions that might be needed, or whether it comes down to some specific students that might need help and support at that given time, that we can jump in and do that. Math follows a very similar pattern. Math, we definitely have things in place for pre-K through 8. And then also our applied algebra class at the high school comes back and utilizes the FastBridge math screener as well. But again, early math, we want to know, can they recognize their numbers? Can they just start with some simple grouping along that route? A math is going to look at that whole math comprehension. It gives them a wide variety of different math skills that they should know within that particular grade level. It's important to note that both the A reading and the A math are what we consider to be adaptive. So whatever they have done, however they're responding, the test will adjust to their skill level to help us know what that student might need and how they're performing on a grade level skill. And then the CBM automaticity, it really goes into that fact fluency, how well they know their facts and how quickly they can give that back out. It's not the fact fluency that I grew up with, where you have 60 to 70 questions on a page and they all go through the 1s and the 2s and the 3s. But it really is presenting that information in many different ways to a student to make sure that they really have a true understanding of what the fact fluency is, and that we know that, are they really getting it or not? So when we look at the results of the reading that we have here in Olathe, you will notice that I put on the left side of your screen what Olathe as a school district looked like in the spring when we looked at the reading as a whole. I will share with you that not reflected in this reading are the K1 scores, that they are tested on such early reading skills and they don't take the same reading assessment as the rest of our students do, so they're not within this data. But then on the right side is the national average. And so to me, this is very important for us to note, because we can be a very competitive system. Our teachers really pride themselves on the work that they do, as well as our administrators. And so we always have to remind them, we are never going to hit 100% of whatever. And so the green is what we want. We want that 62% there. That tells us that those students who fall within that category, that they are doing great. And I also want to point out that it says 62% or 60% if you're looking at the national. That's not a score. That's not the percent that they got correct on their test. Instead, it's a percentile rank And so that tells us if we were to take 100 students that are the same age, the same grade, same time of year, and we gave them the exact same screening, how did this particular student compare to the others that are there? And if we were to line them all up, we would say that anybody, if a student, for example, scored a 74, we would know that they did as well as or better than 74 other students that was part of their line of 100. And so sometimes that can be confusing with parents because they look at that and they would think, how can my student get 62% correct and you're saying they're fine with their reading? So we always want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between that it is not the percent correct. But you will see then also we have the blue and the orange zone up there. That would tell us that those students in the blue might be at risk, and then the ones in that orange, we consider them, there might be like a greater or higher risk for them. So we want to make sure that any student that scores within that blue or orange range, those are the students that we are going to work with, and we're going to give them just a little bit deeper diagnostic, if you will. The test itself is set up to be pretty sensitive. And so we have set it that way intentionally. FastBridge sets it that way intentionally. We want it to be sensitive because we do not want to miss any student that's out there. If it was less sensitive, say, for example, they said, you know what, we're fine with anybody who's in the 30th percentile. Man, there might be a good chunk of students in there that we're missing that we have a chance to do some early intervention with, solidify skills so that as they continue on through their high school schooling that we know that they're on track and they're going to do well. So this is the same information. All the pieces that I talked about earlier hold true to this, and this is when you look at math. And again, we want our students to be in that zone that up here appears as green. Those are the students that we would consider to be on track for us for that grade level at that given time that we're doing this. It's very not unlikely if a student, maybe they start off on track in the fall and we might see a little bit of a dip in the winter. It's because that curriculum is getting a little bit harder. And so we want to dip in there and get some things done real quick to help shore up skills. And then boom, they pop back up in the spring again. So there's a wide variety of ways that pattern can look. But for us, again, it always goes back to the idea that we want to make sure that we are intervening with students on those skills as we continue throughout the school year. So going back to our main chart, the second one that I really want to cover tonight is when you look at the piece that's highlighted there in yellow at the bottom, and that is looking at what we would call a summative assessment, which for us is that collective, that big end of the year assessment, if you will, and which is CAP, so the Kansas Assessment Proficiency Exam. We do that each spring in math, ELA, and science. So this is always even a bigger question than who participates in FastBridge. Or again, that FastBridge information, we have all those students participate. We really use that to make some good instructional decisions. CAP can look a little bit different. So as you can see here, reading is assessed at grades 3 through 8 and at grade 10. The same with math. In the math, the grade 10, I should note, it doesn't matter what math course you're taking in grade 10, you are taking the state math assessment, which sometimes can be tricky if you're in geometry and you haven't reviewed algebra for a while. So our teachers get really good at making sure they find a wide variety of ways to keep those skills sharp for our students. Science, you can see there we have grades 5, 8, and 11 that participate in the science assessment. And then social studies for us is grades 4, 7, and 11. That is not the traditional state assessment test. And instead, that is embedded within the curriculum. And so it's set up to be, I don't know if you remember me talking last year, we want students to be able to assert their claim, give their evidence, and then in the end be able to come back with their reasoning. And so I reminded parents, gosh, if your student has suddenly gotten really good at arguing with you and they're able to come through and state, here's what I need and here's why and there's my rationale. When I'm not going to say blame it on our social studies teachers, but they do a phenomenal job of helping make sure that students are really thinking through those components and helping them grow that skill, if you will, that they're going to use hopefully throughout their adult lives. Within all of this state assessment, I think it's important for us to note what ELL participation looks like. That has not changed over the years, but just as a reminder, regardless of a student's entry day into this country, ELL students have to participate in math and science assessments their first year here. And so it doesn't matter if they're brand new to learning English or not, they have to participate. After 1 year of being in our country, then students have to come on and start taking that ELA assessment as well. And so, I know, I see, yes. And so, in addition to that, not only are students who are identified as being ELL or English language learners, not only are they taking the state assessments, the ones we note up here, but they are also having to participate in an additional exam that is the Kansas English Language Proficiency Assessment. That assessment usually happens during the month of February. So this year it'll kick off early February, goes right up to spring break. And then typically students return from spring break. They have a couple of days to get going. And then they start layering in the state assessments on top of that. So it is a big test for our ELL students. And we are always very excited as to how they do, but it's a big undertaking for anybody, learning a brand new language and then having to demonstrate the knowledge that you have about the subject in a language that's not your own. So when we look at the CAP performance level descriptors, we talked again last year a lot about this, and this has not changed for this year. So we always talk, the state of Kansas talks in 4 levels, levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's important to note that those descriptors really refer to the student's ability to understand and use the skills around the standards for that grade level. So they're really looked at for that grade level and how is that student able to function within that curriculum, if you will. So levels 3 and 4, 2, 3, and 4, all of those tell us that the student is positioned for post-secondary success, whatever that may be. If they want to go on to a trade school, if they want to go on to college, if they want to enter the workforce right away. Like, we know that they're being set up for some good success there. Historically, levels 3 and 4, we used to refer to those as college and career ready. And so that tends to be, anytime you look at state data, those levels 3 and 4, we typically talk about those together because CCR, I don't know if that would be familiar to you or not, but it's that college and career ready is how we abbreviate that. Our students that are level 1, they're considered, when we look at them, they have a basic understanding of what that can be. And I will share with you, there are many reasons a student might score in any of these levels at any given time. And so regardless of what that is, our staff takes that very personal, and they're always trying to figure out how to get students to the next level and what that needs to look like. I am excited. I feel like there should be a drum roll as we actually roll in now and look at some actual data. So I'm excited when we look at our data. First of all, what you see here is our English language arts data from this year. We have up there each grade level and how that looked. We looked at what was their average score the year before and then what was their average score this year. We look at the level of our students, the percent of our students that were in level 1 last year compared to this year. And then again, the percent of our students that were levels 3 and 4 last year compared to what we just got. So everything that you see highlighted in green is great. That is the movement we want. The only one that can feel a little bit misleading is when you look at the level 1%. We always want that score to go down from the year before. And so you'll notice they're grade 3. You know, the 24 is highlighted, well, the year before they were 25. But that tells us that we're having fewer and fewer kids scoring that level 1. So that's always a good thing. Anything that's highlighted in the salmony color, that tells us that that group did go in a direction we did not want it to go. And so when you look at that, you know, it's frustrating for us because we never want any salmon up there. But we do have it in a couple places, and we always ask ourselves, what really contributed to that? And so again, that's part of the ongoing pieces that we have. When you look at any data from this last spring that has no highlight in it, that means there was no change from the previous year. Digging a little bit deeper, when we look at student groups, we have up here, again, how all of our students did across the board. We always make sure that we consider our ELL and non-ELL students, how their scores are going. It's real interesting to note, when you look at the ELL and you see that 5% is highlighted, the thing to remember there is that as a student does well and they become proficient in English, they drop the ELL tag. And so they're no longer considered ELL. And so the reality is we have just a very small number of students that are considered ELL that are in a level 3 and 4 because they have now exited that process. They don't have to worry about CELPA anymore. They're no longer considered ELL, and which is always great for them. But anytime we see that number drop, it's kind of a punch to the gut because, again, we don't like it. We hate it when it drops. But the reality is we do expect that to drop some because, again, that's not a consistent number of students that stay in that. It's constantly adjusted. Again, you can see our students with disabilities. We've reduced the number of students that were level 1 within that. And so we love seeing all the green that's there. Continuing on with student groups, we always look at our students that might be considered low SES. So within that, again, looking at, we didn't drop, there were no changes in level 1, but we had some great growth when we look at the number of students that are scoring in the 3s and 4s. Excuse me. And then when we look at our race and ethnicity, again, we love all the greens that are out there. We do have 3 areas that you can see where there's some of that salmon popping up. So not huge differences from what it was the year before, but again, our teachers and our staff, we do not like seeing that at all. So it's always a challenge for us to figure out what we need to adjust and change to help our students within each of those student groups to continue to grow. This right here is just a quick comparison. People always want to know across the state, what did that look like? And so we just throw up there, you can see the green is the district, and then the blue is where the state would have been for their average for that grade level. And that's their average score on the assessment. So rolling on into math, again, this gives you the big overview for the entire district and how we did for math. Again, we are celebrating the green that you see up there, loving that. You will notice as you look across here, again, some highlights that we love, even though it didn't highlight, but we had no increase in level 1 for our ELL students. And then all but one student group increased the number of students in levels 3 and 4 that you see. And again, looking at our students that might be low SES. We love that. Making some great growth there. And then again, when we come back and we look at our ethnicity and race, loving the green, loving the green. But again, there's always room to grow. And then finally, again, that comparison to the state and what that state average was. Okay. All right, moving on to ACT. A quick look at this. I think it's important to note, and I know you got to see it on the notes, and if anybody else has not looked at that yet, the thing about ACT that I want to make sure everybody hears very clearly, from the 22-23 testing season, if you will. It's a long, many, many months that students can jump in and take the ACT or retake the ACT. But from one year to the next, the number of students that we had as a district participating in the ACT, it increased by over 200 students. So that is just huge. There's no way that's not going to impact the scores that you see up here. And then again, we look at the district, state, and national participation, or the scores. And I want to point out, that participation rate is not the same across the nation. And so I do not have yet the participation rates from 23-24, but they finally released those rates for 22-23. So just to give you an idea that the state of Kansas in 22-23, 74% of our students, of our seniors, took the ACT, where across the nation, that rate was only like 37%. So there's a huge difference between those two. Kansas fell at number 17 in terms, if you were to line all the states up, in the participation rate. So we were number 17 from the top within that. And so when you look at just those 17 that had a higher participation rate than we did, only 2 of those states had a higher composite score than we did. And that would be North Dakota and Utah. And so in that, North Dakota sat at 19.6 and Utah was 19.9, just in terms of what their average was. And then there was one state, Wisconsin, that had the same composite score as Kansas, and they had a 95% participation rate. So again, when you look at that, only 8 states had 100% of their students participate. And then there were 17 states in the nation that had less than 10% of their kids who take the ACT. And so the lowest participation rate was the state of Maine. And again, Maine, 2% of their kids participated. Is that you guys trying to cut me off because you think I've gone too long? No. So 2% of their students participated, and their composite score was like 24.8. So, I think the big difference is in Olathe and the state of Kansas, but especially Olathe. Like for us, ACT serves as such a gateway to so many opportunities for our students, and it really helps them set some bars and set some goals and what they want to accomplish. So as a state and as a district, we really work hard to make sure that any and all students who would like to participate in that test get that chance to do so. We don't hold on to it for only the brightest or only students in certain classes. Like, we really want all of our seniors to participate in that. So overall, just looking forward, we continue to ask ourselves all the time in learning services, even though I'm the one up here talking about the data, there's not a single person sitting here within all of our team that does not impact this somehow. So we're constantly working together and thinking it through. Within learning services, though, we continue to ask ourselves these 3 key questions. How are we using Tier 1 instruction to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all of our students? How are we defining high-quality instruction, and how are we selecting our strategies to make sure that our students are really able to dig deep and have transfer of their learning? And then we're constantly looking at how we can build the efficacy of our teachers so that they start to feel that confidence and they know kind of how to continually pivot and move based upon all this data. When you go back to that second slide I showed that had that big graph of data, they're constantly getting updates on that as well. So we want them to feel that efficacy of knowing what to do and how to impact our students. Out of all of this, I want to remind everybody that regardless of all the things that were just on the slide that I spoke about previously of what impacts our student learning, we know as a district, this has become a near and dear to our hearts kind of topic when we talk about chronic absenteeism. And so I'm here tonight before our entire community to extend the invitation to everybody to come to our district site council meeting on September 30th. It really is a community call to action. And we want to be able to, as a community, learn and calibrate what is chronic absenteeism, what does that mean to us, and then be able to look at the things that impact chronic absenteeism and help each other start brainstorming ways that we can help our students be able to get to school. At the end of the day, if they're not in our seats, they're going to struggle. And so we want every student there every moment that we can have them there. And so that's my plea to everybody who's listening, if you will. So having said that, I'm officially done. Dr. McMillan, I hope you noted the time. But I absolutely welcome any questions that you may have.
Claire Reagan.
Hi, thank you. So I'm sure you saw my face a bit when you're talking about ELL students who are new to the country, and I know we do a lot to come wrap around our kids who are new to school, and of course, new to the United States. But I guess is it state statute that makes it so that they have to take the test? Because I imagine it's like, welcome, and the test is not written in their native language.
Correct, it's written in English.
Right, and I'm not talking about the KELPA, I'm talking about the science and math they have to take their first year here. I just don't,
It does. Doesn't it seem crazy? And I always put myself in their seat if I were to go to any other country.
Right.
I don't know anything, right? So I know a lot, but I don't know if I could convey it in their language. And that's what we see with so many of our students. But it's actually a federal mandate that they have to participate regardless of where they enroll. And that's why it's so important to note when the student came into the country, they might have been just a couple of weeks in a different district in a different state, but that impacts our timeline as well, when they settle here.
Well, and I appreciate that it's after 1 year they get tested in English for ELA, but if the tests for math and science are written in English, that just struck me, given, in our district we have so many students who are non-native English speakers, and I know that younger children pick it up so quickly, but I can't only imagine how overwhelming, and I know our staff does a really good job. We had a presentation, I think last spring, from, the people who support our kiddos who are new to, the country, and even those who are able to extend their education so that they can get the richness of it. But I just, that just really made my eyes big. But I appreciate seeing the data, seeing numbers for a district this big is, I think, important for us to figure out, as you said, efficacy and how we move forward. So thank you for that. But I had to explain my facial expressions to you because you noticed
I knew exactly what you were thinking as I saw that. So you're good.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions, board? Dr. Ye.
This is slick.
It is.
Sorry, I can't help myself. It's the little things in life. I want to thank Julie for the information. And, I think it's important that we always take time to analyze where our state assessment results are. It's kind of a necessary piece in the world that we're living in. And, obviously we celebrate so much the green spots, not the salmon spots, which sounds funny to say, but, we certainly appreciate looking for growth. But the thing that Julie mentioned several times, and it's really relative to FastBridge, is just that depth and looking in to make sure that we're not missing kids, and that's really the important thing. And I so appreciate the conversation about our students who receive ELL support. We have students for who in our district scoring a level 1 on the state assessment is an absolute celebration. And, as the superintendent for all kids in this district, sometimes there's people who out there are saying, level 1 is a failure and not good. But, if you think about a kiddo who maybe has been experiencing English in some shape or form for a year, and they're now taking the 8th grade test at an 8th grade reading level in English, and they score a level 1, gosh, that's a celebration, and those kinds of things. And, I think oftentimes that's one of the things that's important for us to share with our community is we have kids who that's a heck of a celebration because of the situation, that they've been put in by federal legislation and what have you. So I appreciate your comments with that. I also want to mention that the state assessment will be different this year. There's a new state assessment that will be coming out this spring, so that's something we're eagerly awaiting here in Olathe, but it will likely mean that we won't have our data for a presentation like this maybe until like December next year. So I just wanted the board to know that we will obviously, because of that and the calibration they'll do with that, will be months beyond that in terms of our state assessment data. I also want to say an appreciation to our high schools. Our high schools are very competitive, and they would all love to have a composite score on the ACT of 26, 27, 30, that kind of thing. But I really appreciate what Julie said over the last number of years, the true intention to get more kids taking the ACT, because that really is access and opportunity for many kids in terms of not just entrance to college, but also real money in terms of scholarships and what have you. And it would be easy for our high school principals and their teams to say more kids taking it may impact our scores negatively, but they've really prioritized the number of kids taking it because of access and opportunity, which I think is really important to note as well. And then because it was up there on the last slide, obviously we're going to talk about chronic absenteeism at site council, and you've noticed things from our schools this year about that, and also our comms team has a plan where they're going to be sharing information. But we know one of the things that leads to success is kids being in school. That's certainly not something that's not backed by research and what have you, but I will tell you, we don't have a slide, but we are outpacing the state incredibly, not in a good way in our school district. Our students are chronically absent, probably about 10 to 12% more of our students than statewide, and that's unusual for us in Olathe to not be well above the state average in a good way, but this is one area where we are struggling compared to the state average, and obviously that's important to us for a lot of reasons. One of them is even our accreditation as a school system and those pieces. So, one of the things I've always appreciated about this board is your willingness to push us a little bit to say what are the real issues and what are the things you're working on. We really believe that if we get all of our kids in their seats every single day, some of these results will automatically go up across our system. And there's a variety of reasons why our kids are absent, but that's been a focus from our general administration friends and our administrators across the system and our staff this year, just making sure that we help convey the importance of kids being in school every day. So anyway, thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Johan?
I can hear you. So
okay, well, it's for my fans. It's for my fans out there, right? Okay, so I just had a couple. I noted. I don't have like two. Anyway, Layla and Everett. That's who they are. Anyway, the two things that I noted with some of the decreased scores in the ELA. I was wondering if there's a correlation with COVID, perhaps, with those grades, because my daughter's in 5th grade, and so I kind of remember that was kindergarten for her, and so perhaps those are the areas. I don't know, just something I noted. And then a question I had was with the scores or ACT participation rates. Does Maine do some other type of testing? Is SAT still the...
I don't have an answer to that one.
Okay.
I really don't. But
I'm just curious.
It's a great question to ask. I know typically, and there's nothing behind this except like just basic things I've read here and there, right? So I know that typically our schools that are on the coast, they do tend to lean into the SATs more than they do the ACTs.
Okay.
And the Midwest tends to lean into the ACT more.
Okay, so I just wondered if that was still the case. I felt like that was when I was in high school, but a long time ago. Okay,
I truly don't.
I see a lot of nodding heads
for you and let you know though if you would like. And in regards to your questions about what we see in the data, again, I don't have any solid research that tells me, yes, that's what we're seeing, but we all know. We all know, and we look and we say, oh, here's the group of students that we know they missed kindergarten, they missed 1st grade. And just thinking about how that impacts, that ability to have that teacher there working with students every day on the reading and the math. And there are many different reasons why they might have missed through COVID, but there's no question that it's had an impact on that. I think for us as a system, the caution is always that we can't keep falling back on that to say this is why we're not doing well and just kind of write that off. So we're constantly coming through and figuring out, okay, if we say that this group in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, they missed some pieces of that core instruction on how to be a reader, how are we going to get that back to them now? Because they still have to have that skill at a level that we do as they enter, leave high school and enter the real world, if you will. That's probably not the most eloquent way to say that, but that's the reality. We have to figure out how we're getting that back to them. And I will tell you that all of our coordinators, that's always at the forefront of their mind as to what we can do to strengthen those skills, because we know they miss some critical things.
I appreciate that. My daughter is young for her grade already. She's an August baby, and so she started in kindergarten, and so was behind in reading, and I've seen great strides. She's in 5th grade now and had a couple interventions throughout the time, and so I appreciate the extra efforts that were taken, so I can kind of speak from experience from that and thinking about how she's going to progress in her school career. Yeah.
And Dr. Yair, I don't know if you would add anything to that?
Yeah, the main thing I would add, and 2 things that I would mention. One is actually I read an article last week that they believe that kind of the COVID impact is actually starting to minimize now, and that they're starting to see some national gains where it looks like the kind of catch up from the learning loss that's been attributed to COVID is coming back, which is good. And I think our data would bear that out to some degree as well. The data across the state of Kansas is fairly flat, so to see ours increasing in places is pretty exciting. The other thing that I wanted to mention just really clearly tonight too is just what an undertaking it is for our staff as they look at this data and they analyze this data. You all are familiar with ION and some of the data processes that we have in our system, but certainly it's important for us as a senior team and the Board of Education to analyze this data every year. But the work really happens in our PLCs and in our classroom when our educators are sitting around the tables talking about specific kids who either need enhancement and enrichment, or kids who are missing any one of skills and that kind of thing. And it's easy to kind of look at the picture at the beginning of each year and say we'll see it next year, but there's so much work in between that happens by our incredible staff each and every day to meet kids' needs.
All right.
Anyone else? I do, and Dr. Veach, you can comment on this too. I'll preface my statement by saying we always want improvement, no matter how minute that improvement is. And if it goes the other way, we're disappointed and we're looking at how to fix it. But one thing that struck me with a lot of this data is the change, that would warrant a salmon color is often 1%, or an average score of 2 points. And as I led with, we always want it to be in the green, going that direction by multiple percentage points, but it doesn't always happen. But I do want to point that out, because when you first see the salmon, you're like, oh my gosh, but then you look at the numbers and knowing what the staff are doing, because I know those classroom teachers also are like, I don't want my kids, one in the salmon group.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's so important for all of us to remember that we as a system would never lean into just one data point. And so I know sometimes, leaning into the state assessment data is what many people look at, and that's the only judgment they give us. But for us as a district, it is so crucial for us to constantly be looking at all the different things that we do. That chart I had at the beginning, not the one that talked about, we have the screeners and we have formatives and all of those pieces. That's the stuff that we need to lean into, because we need to look at a student performing in a multitude of ways across their learning time. And so it's just so critical that we remember not to rest just on that one score that comes through, because it truly isn't reflective of the entire student. So. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And Dr. McMillan will take the credit for the last 20 minutes where we kept Dr. Veach at the microphone. Okay, moving on in our agenda, Miss Steele.
At each regular meeting, Board of Education reserves limited time for individuals to address the board. We ask that your comments be germane, that is, related to the business this board effectuates. Non-compliance may result in the president interrupting to redirect. We request that individual speakers limit their comments to 5 minutes. The clerk will monitor the time and notify the speaker when the 5-minute time limit has expired. Please direct your comments to the board and not the guests or staff. If a response is appropriate, the president will respond or refer to another individual. In an effort to respect privacy, we ask that speakers refrain from discussing personal complaints involving individual staff members or students. Audience disruption is also not permitted. Those speaking are advised that public comments are videotape recorded for broadcast on the district's educational access channel and audio tape recorded as a matter of public record. Individuals addressing the board should come to the podium at the front of the room, state your name, city and state, and your relationship to the district. Thank you.
Carrie Van Buskirk.
A new room. It looks great, and I really appreciate actually the technology is what I noticed right off. So anyway, money well spent. I actually was prepared to speak tomorrow, not this evening, and was pleasantly surprised that I'd be speaking tonight. I wanted to come before you, and funny thing is I don't want to talk about things that are captured in numbers and in data. I wanted to come and talk about character, and oftentimes we don't see that in data points. So I think I came at the right time. So good evening, I'm Carrie Van Buskirk. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you all this evening. I'm the mother of Ty Van Buskirk, who has autism and graduated in 2023 from Olathe South, and Benjamin, who is a rising senior that died tragically about 5 weeks ago. Most often, I come before you all as a board to share my thoughts and feelings regarding how our Olathe public schools serve the needs of students with autism. And often I share where I feel that we fall short at times and need improvement. Many may find that my intentions are critical and sometimes even perhaps negative. But I want to ensure each and every one of you that my intentions have always been and will remain to be encouraging. I seek to build things up, not to tear them down. And in that spirit, it is only right and fair that I acknowledge where our Olathe public schools get it right. Frankly, we get it really right. Our Olathe public schools, from classified staff, big shout out to them, custodians, food service workers, our wonderful nurses, our blessed paras, all the way to our teachers, our administration, and our service and providers, and our esteemed board members have all wrapped my family in love and support throughout the hardest days so incredibly well. We are incredibly grateful from the bottom of my heart. Many months ago, I met with Dr. Yeager and some various admin to discuss my concerns as an advocate from my perspective regarding needs in our autism community. And in that meeting, he asked me, Carrie, do you feel that it's important for parents to be partners in education? And I confidently responded to him, yes, it is vital. He and I wholeheartedly share and agree on this. That partnership has ever been present in our shaping of Benjamin's character. My husband, Mark, and I did not do this alone. For approximately 7 hours a day, 186 days a year, from first grade through 11th grade, numerous educators, support staff, certified staff, paras, nurses, coaches, our Olathe Public Schools poured into our Benjamin and helped shape the character of a young man that stopped after witnessing a horrible accident and ran to aid an injured person and ultimately sacrificed himself in doing so. It was an immeasurable honor to share our Benjamin with each and every one of you those 10 years. And we thank you for your partnership and ongoing support. As Benjamin lived and ultimately died, may each and every one of us continue to live with intention, meaningful purpose, a listening ear, a watchful eye for one another, and an inclusive heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Toshiba Merritt, Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me this evening. I am a parent of 3 children in the Olathe School District, 2 of which are in elementary. And what brings me here today is the topic of diversity, equality, and inclusiveness. I heard a lot about it this evening, but I wanted to bring it to your attention that there is still a lot of room for opportunity. What I would like to see, because of recently my 5-year-old kindergartner, her second week of school this year was met with racist experience. Unfortunately, all 3 of my children, which my oldest one is now a junior in high school, was met with it as well. When we moved here when he was in the 4th grade. I have one son who's in the 2nd grade who was also met with it. My second son who was met with it, I was not shocked as I was with my first son. With my daughter, I expected it, but at this point, it's unacceptable and it has to end. I would like to see that at this level, that you all start to have conversations and brainstorm on how you can reach your families in this community. Because for a 5-year-old to tell my daughter, who is her peer, that I don't want to be your friend because your skin is black and you're going to have black, dirty babies. My daughter should never have to experience that. This last week, my daughter, as she woke up every morning and looked in the mirror, she was reminded. And I had to watch her with a sad face, wash her face, and ask me, was she pretty? Is her skin pretty? She want her skin to look like mine, which mine is darker than hers. So if your beautiful skin is not good enough, mine is darker than yours, why should mine be even better? My daughter, or no child that looks like my daughter, should have to experience this emotional distraction while trying to learn. We have to get the message out to our families and our communities that our schools will not accept this if you're going to be in our community. I teach my children to love and care. That's all they know how to do. I struggle to even have a conversation with my daughter how to handle this. I expected that this would happen in this community, sadly, but I struggle with how to address it, how to make an excuse for it, or even to be honest and tell them how ignorant it is, because she's a sponge. She's going to listen and remember everything that I say, and I'm not a professional on finding those right words to speak for this type of ignorance. So what I would like is to see more conversations had so that we can reach more families. Of course, there's going to be ignorance in this world. We can't control that. But in the schools, the parents should know it's not going to be tolerated here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Merritt, before you walk away, I do, and I know I'm speaking for the board because I know these people sitting up here with me. That is not what we want for the children of Olathe, for any child. And so on behalf, I would apologize. I know that doesn't take away the pain and for you or for your daughter. But know that we are working towards doing better. In a lot of areas, but certainly in the area of acceptance and welcome and understanding of each other. So thank you for being here tonight.
I don't want to share any names or even the school because it doesn't matter. I'm sure I am not the only one who has experienced this out of 250 plus children. Maybe I'm the only one who was bold enough to speak up. But at the particular school, the principal has been very supportive. But to have been met with this 3 different times, my oldest son is now a junior. He was in the 4th grade at the time. Now my middle child, who is in the 2nd, and my baby girl, who is in the kindergarten, is a bigger picture. Yes. And so I needed to bring that to your attention tonight.
And thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Megan Briggs.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Megan Bricks, and I'm a resident of DeSoto, Kansas, and I'm the proud music teacher at Forest View Elementary School. We've had an extremely exciting start to our school year so far. We've welcomed new educators to our district, and we've had the pleasure to welcome back educators who left us at one time and made the fantastic choice to join us again. We've welcomed new students from different districts, different parts of the country into our buildings, and we've welcomed returning students back into our buildings to see familiar faces. Throughout the past several weeks, educators and staff members across our school district have been working to build relationships with our students to meet their needs. Our educators and staff go above and beyond to ensure that our students have what they need to be successful at school. One of the most important things that we must remember is that in order to best support our students in our school district, we must listen to the needs of those who work with them, the educators, the paraprofessionals, the custodians, the secretaries, who have a direct impact on our students' education as they are in our classroom or our work area day in and day out. As we've started the year with many changes, I want to ensure that every educator and staff member's voice can be heard to provide them with the support and guidance they need with our new resources and changes that are directly impacting our teaching. I'm extremely thankful that we are working together as a school district to support one another in this. Yesterday, during our professional development, educators were able to select sessions that aligned with their interests. Educator voice helped truly impact this symposium coming about as educators continued to stress the importance of attending professional development that is related to our content area and creating more personalized professional learning for educators in our district. As we continue to listen to educators' voices, we must always remain steadfast in our mission to provide educators and staff with all that they need for the best possible public education for our students. I'm very appreciative of our school district for continuing to utilize and listen to educator voice in every decision that will impact both our educators and our students in our school community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah Sams Kilnsing. Can you help me with that?
Cleansing, kind of like a cleansing breath, kind of. I don't know. It's weird. Don't worry about it.
I need to take my glasses off to see it better. Thank you.
Dear Olathe board members, my name is Sarah Cleansing Sams. I'm a teacher and educator at the Mill Creek campus. Last school year around this time, I came and talked to you guys reactively, and this year I decided to come beforehand. There's a word, better word. But before I begin, I would like to model how to discuss difficult topics. This evening, I will be talking about suicide and its surrounding terminology. If this topic will be upsetting to you, please feel free to leave. Moreover, if you know someone who is struggling with suicidal ideation, please seek immediate help from a mental health professional by calling or texting 988. Help is available. Today, I stand before you with a heavy heart and a burning passion to address the topic that is often concealed by stigma and fear: suicide. September is Suicide Awareness Month, which is an opportunity to foster understanding, compassion, and support for those impacted by suicide and mental health challenges. I speak from personal experience and as an advocate, having seen many students struggle with suicide. I do happen to be an extended absence service tutor, which is a wonderful opportunity we have here in Olathe, but I cannot tell you how many of my direct students that I serve are struggling. It's a lot, which scares me. My advocacy also began 6 years ago when my father chose to end his life. It is essential that we approach discussions about suicide with care and empathy. The language we use can either perpetrate stigma and misunderstanding or promote compassion and healing. Historically, the term committed suicide has been used, but this phrase carries a negative connotation and implies criminality. Since 1973, no state in the United States has classified suicide as a criminal act. Yet the term persists, casting a shadow of judgment and shame. Instead, we should be utilizing phrases such as died by suicide or chose suicide. These terms reflect a more compassionate understanding and acknowledge the profound pain that can lead to such a tragic decision. I personally utilize chose suicide. To me, it shows that my father made a choice. Was it a smart one? I can't tell you, but he made a choice. It was a human act. Our choice of language significantly impacts how we perceive and respond to mental health struggles. By adopting respectful and empathetic terminology, we help to dismantle stigma and encourage open dialogue and create an environment where individuals feel supported and understood. Suicide is a complex and deeply personal issue. Behind every statistic, news headline, and whispered rumor is a person deserving of empathy, respect, and compassion, and the families that are left behind. This month, let us remember that each of us plays a role in offering support and fostering an environment where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength and not as weakness. Let us also take this opportunity to educate ourselves and others about the warning signs of suicide and the resources available for those in need. Encouraging conversations about mental health and providing support can make a profound difference in somebody's life. In conclusion, let us be the change makers who use our voice and actions to promote understanding and compassion here in Olathe. By embracing language that fosters empathy and inclusivity, we can work together to build a community where no one faces their struggles alone. I'm not saying they're not going to be there, just can't be alone. Thank you for your commitment to this important cause and for your dedication for making a difference in Olathe. I will say we do have our signs of suicide in the high school, I believe also in the middle schools. However, I do think there are still opportunities for growth even past that one hour thing that we touch on every year. There's opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Lanter.
Hello, I'm Patty. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about taxes, and I know that's already a done deal, and it's happened and it's over. I heard from a few people earlier that were here that expected some discussion on the increase in the actual budget. They thought they would learn something regarding why more money is being taken. They were shocked that nothing was said at all to justify anything in the budget. That is very sad. In an ethical and truly efficient system, any people involved in crafting or spending of budgets for the school districts or any government entity should be required to listen to the people that have to bear the burden for the spending and spending increase. Regarding the taxpayers, during a meeting on August 20th in the county, many people spoke on behalf of themselves and their elderly family members being taxed out of their homes. They thought they owned their homes outright as they had paid off their mortgages many years ago. They have realized that they do not actually own them since they can no longer afford the taxes in Johnson County and can't live there anymore. A retired school teacher was one of the speakers. She is on a fixed income and has had enough of the rampant, uncontrolled taxing. One man sobbed on behalf of the tax debt that his grandchildren will be born into. People cannot afford these increases that are approved without a care in the world. Regarding renovation of this very room, constructed after the old one was torn to pieces and thrown away, it was not free money. You may see it that way, but the people actually do have to pay for it, and we do not see it that way. Yes, we pay for anything spent by the federal government too. Can we get the old chairs out of the dumpster? The new ones don't seem like they're going to work as they slide all over. This seems like a safety risk and a legal liability, which would lead to additional legal expenses. Blowing out a budget shouldn't be as easy as it is for the public schools. This is not how it is done in the real world. In non-public schools that don't have a blank checkbook, or in schools that teach kids to balance a checkbook, there isn't more money to be taken from taxpayers. When non-government people don't have the funds, they wait until they cannot avoid spending and can afford to fund the repairs. This should apply in all aspects of life, not just in our houses. With the student population that is shrinking taking. There's no way we should be adding anything in administrative rules, nor should we be adding to an already massive budget. It is unsustainable to keep taking. Every time any cent is spent, I hope you can visualize the sobbing people that will lose their homes because of that extra new and maybe improved, oh so important NGO package that has to be purchased. Too bad we can't pull the successful phonics workbooks from years ago out of the dumpster too. In looking at the KNEA website, I see it is not actually a union, but rather a political machine only. It is pretty glaring, so I kind of expect the spending like that. I would expect the public to be informed on this, that a political organization is shaping their schools. I would hope that voters will learn which state board candidates just want to mindlessly grow the political machine that is sponsored and vote for the responsible candidates instead. As Margaret Thatcher once said, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the action consent area of the agenda, I would welcome a motion to approve consent agenda items.
I move to approve action consent agenda items numbered 6.01 through 6.05 as presented. Second.
Motion by Mr. Boyd, seconded by Mr. Babbitt.
Mrs. Reagan.
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Johan.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Bids, contracts, agreements. Items 7.01 to 7.07.
I move to approve action bids, contracts, and agreements 7.01 through 7.07 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Boyd, seconded by Ms. Reagan.
Mrs. Johan.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt.
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mrs. Reagan.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Item 8.01, Board of Education Committee assignments for 2024-2025. I would welcome a motion.
Move to approve 8.01 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Steele, second by Ms. Johan.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mrs. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mrs. Johan.
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt.
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Before we move on, I do want to just make a couple of comments. Board information related to the committees. The superintendent leadership team member who works with those committees will be reaching out to board members serving on specific committees to identify dates and times for meetings in hopes that we can find times that work for everyone to attend those meetings on a regular basis. And I would just thank the SLT members for that, for working with us to set that up and for preparing agendas and information and being proactive with information related and topics related to those committees. Also, just as we did last year, the notes from those meetings will be shared with Dr. Yeager, and he will include them in the weekly notification to all of us so that those of us not attending the meetings will have information about what was discussed. An ask for each of us would be when you get the reminder about a week before the meeting, if you know that you are not going to be able to be there for whatever reason, if you could reach out to Ms. Beam, she will then notify the other board members that there's a seat at the table for that committee meeting. And so then you could reach out to her to fill that seat, so that, again, SLT take time to prepare agendas and information, and we want to make sure that the board is well represented. Any questions related to that before we move on? Okay. Item 8.02, Board of Education School Site Council assignments. A motion to accept.
I move to approve item 8.02 as written.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Reagan, second by Ms. Steele.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Johan?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Additional information related to school site council assignments. It is, when we had our leadership meeting, Ms. Steele and I, with Dr. Yeager, it is fine to reach out to the schools to get dates and times of school site council meetings. They will also be reaching out to you, but if you want to get things on your calendar, don't hesitate to do that. Dr. Veach did point out the district site council meeting is September 30th at Olathe South, so would encourage any board members available that evening to attend. And oftentimes there are pre-meetings. The schools hold pre-meetings because they know their site council members are going to be there. So that might be another opportunity, or an opportunity, when you could even hit several schools the same evening, because oftentimes feeder patterns will be there together and meet together. Is Dr. Veach still here? My understanding is you are the person that would hold the information as to which schools might be doing that, because they have to reserve a space with you.
Yeah, Dr. Veach and I actually visited yesterday, and so she is going to work on that. There's a number of schools, and they reserve through Dr. Veach's office if they're going to meet ahead of time and who's there. So in the next couple of weeks, she'll get that information so you can plan ahead as board members. So.
Thank you. Okay. 8.03, a resolution to adopt the local option budget percentage.
I move to adopt a resolution calling for a local option percentage in the amount of 33% for the 24-25 school year.
Motion by Ms. Steele, second by Mr. Boyd.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Johan?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. 8.04, approval of the 2024-25 budget.
Dr. Yurkovich, I'm sorry, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
On 8.03, that 33%, that is the maximum, right?
Mr.
Yes, it is. We had a resolution over a decade ago where the public agreed to 33%. It just has to be renewed each year when you're above the state average.
Thank you. Sorry.
Is there a motion to adopt the 2024-25 budget?
I move to adopt the 2024-25 budget developed based upon the needs assessment and other budget information made available to the board and the public on the district's website and as presented this evening.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Johan, seconded by Ms. Steele.
Is this when we would make a comment? I just wanted to point out at the last board meeting we had, Mr. Hutchinson gave a presentation about the budget, which I appreciated hearing. It's a very complex collection of information. We have, 27 checkbooks, I think, right, roughly? And I appreciate that it's a lot of numbers, and that, as a homeowner, I see the number on our bill and whatnot, but I also know that my husband and I very intentionally chose our community because of the quality of education that our district offers, and I understand that, a district of our size requires robust support that is fiduciary, and the amount of money we invested in our staff this year was well spent, and I just the budget process is one that I am continually learning about, and I appreciate the work that goes into it, and I do not take it lightly, my vote on this budget this evening.
Any other comments? No. Go ahead. No. Go. Let's take a vote, then I'll make a comment.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Johan?
My fans can. Yes.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes. I would like to thank John Hutchison, Cassie Osborne, the Finance Department, the work that you do every day. But as Ms. Reagan talked about, the presentation, the amount of detail, your willingness continually to answer questions. Just thank you for the support that you provide for the district and the students. 8.05, Professional Development Plan.
I move to approve action other item 8.05 as presented. Did you not hear me?
Your fans can't hear you.
I move to approve action other item 8.05 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Brad Boyd and second by Claire Reagan. Before we vote, I wonder, Ms. Cooter, you're in the room and you are behind this plan, put it together. I wondered if you might just give us an overview as to why this is coming before us. And I would also just mention, and it was mentioned, I think, by Ms. Briggs, the quality of the professional development yesterday, or was it Friday? Was it yesterday? And I also had heard and seen a lot of posts about that. So, and did we get her a microphone, or you can come up and stand? Okay, thank you.
Hopefully it's not reverberating too much here. The Kansas State Department of Education requires that we do submit a 5-year professional development plan to KSDE as part of how we award professional development points for relicensure purposes. And so that is why we have brought forward our 5-year plan to the Board of Education, so that we have that opportunity for you to see what that plan is as well. We are very proud of the work that we do in professional learning, but as we've seen with some other opportunities this evening, we do have some opportunities for growth, particularly with our classified staff. And so we are committed to having those opportunities and continue. We want our staff to grow in all all of the learning that they do. We want them to be the best in front of our students and give our students the best opportunities. I'm not sure if you have specific questions. Many of the portions that come in this professional development plan are KSDE guidelines and regulations, and so the way professional development points are awarded, at what levels, whether it's through content standards, professional standards, or service to the profession, those are all defined related to KSDE regulations. But we put those together in how we have some definitions. And one of the things I'm also very proud of is we have our Leaders for Learning representatives who they are our professional development council, which each school district is required to have that to oversee how professional development points are awarded within each school district. And we spent quite a bit of our time last year looking at our professional development plan because so much of professional learning has changed. The opportunities for teachers to engage in online learning, webinars, we still have a lot of face-to-face opportunities, but there are so many more ways that educators engage with professional learning, and we want to be responsive to that. So we've updated some of the language to make it more reflective of how our educators are engaging in learning.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and for all of your work. Ms. B.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mrs. Johan.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0. 8.06, board policy updates.
I move to adopt board policies JBD and JBE and retire board policies JBA, JBAA, JBAB, JCAC, and JBAD as presented.
Second.
Motion by Will Babbitt and second by Julie Steele.
Mrs. Reagan.
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd.
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Johan.
Yes.
Thank you. I would note future action items that are listed in the agenda for next month's discussion and vote. The board policy updates, again, much of those both tonight and next month are related to suggestions by KASB or legislative changes. So encourage you to review those. And then written information, Student Health Services, September Head Start Director's Report, and the bond issue update that were provided with this month's agenda. At this time, Ms. Steele?
I just had a quick comment on the written information, and I know that Dr. Gilliland is not here tonight. I don't see her. I saw her little name. But honestly, it is a robust report on the health room visits over the last year, and I could give you a ton of stats that will just kind of widen your eyes, like Ms. Reagan's eyes widened earlier. But one of them I will share with you is the number of health room visits in a school year. We were up 14% last year from the year before, and that number is 326,486 visits to the health room. These are our nurses taking care of our kids. So anyway, thank you to Dr. Gilliland for all the work going on with our nurses, and we appreciate all of you.
Topics for discussion. Ms. Reagan.
On the topic of suicide prevention in September, I appreciated the comments made today during public comments, and part of, destigmatizing, mental health and treating it just as health is talking about it. And suicide prevention begins with mental health care. And I appreciate the work that our district does for our students and our staff. I did want to point out with the document that Ms. Steele just referenced is the number of visits to our nurse for mental health declined this year. So that may be because we have other resources that our students are utilizing. But I do think, suicide prevention, it's one of those things that starts a lot sooner than a lot of us realize. And so many of us in our community, in this room, have been touched by suicide in one way or another. And I appreciate the reminder that the language we use around these losses are important. And we can model that language for our students in the district. So thank you. I do want to point out, even though we'll have another meeting or maybe two before we hit it, the voter registration deadline for the November 5th election is October 15th. And we, as a school district, we have a lot of kiddos who will be turning 18 before that point, and they can register to vote before their 18th birthday, and their registration will activate so they can vote on their 18th birthday. So that is something important to keep in mind. Voting is a superpower. It is amazing. And even though there's a lot of buzz at the top of the ticket, down ballot races are what influence our school the most, our school district the most, and that's the legislature and the state school board. We need to make sure that we are informing ourselves as a community about the candidates and how they plan to support public education. It's really easy to put up really cool social media graphics with kids and smiles, but we live in a time where public education needs our support at the ballot box, and the best way to do that is to be informed voters. And if you have college students, have them request their mail ballots as soon as possible so they can sign up for one. Don't wait till the October 29th or whatever deadline. Sign up for mail ballots early. Get those things taken care of. I'll admit, I didn't vote in my first election until I was 20 because I was like, "Ooh, yay, presidential! That's what I'm going to vote." Don't do that. Don't be like me. Vote when you turn 18. Start voting. And if you're going to college, vote where you sleep on the holidays. Vote at home where that makes an influence. Although maybe your vote as a college student will matter in a swing state, but we don't need to get into that. So, and as far as just staff salaries and all of that, electing folks who are committed to fully funding special education is something that is particularly important to me and is, I know, to our district. And so just being very mindful of that as you educate yourself in the weeks leading up to the election. But great start to this school year. My children are really loving being back at school. It's been amazing seeing all the people excited and just experiencing a different traffic pattern in our city in the mornings. That's been a pleasant surprise. I also wanted to point out it may be the start of PTO fundraising season at various schools across the district. Everyone can support their school in a variety of ways. And while fundraising, there can be, a competition aspect. A lot of it is just about participating and supporting where you are able to fit in. So grateful to be here up on this great dais with updated technology where I can take a drink and people don't hear me because it's live mic all the time. So I appreciate the technology updates, and I know that our staff has worked hard to maintain our equipment for a long, long time. And it's nice to have things that are up to date to make our meetings as accessible as possible to the public. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I'll echo that with Ms. Reagan. It feels good to be home in this space. So thank you to Mr. Palangi, to Mr. Humphrey, and to Ron, and to Tony. Hi, Tony. Thank you for all you did to make this happen tonight. And especially thank you to our community who passed a bond that allowed us to be able to do this. This room has not had updates for, I think, like 30 years. Is that right? So it was about time. So thank you. I I'm looking at what my comments were, and I will get to those, but I just have a real pit in my stomach after listening to Ms. Merritt. And for those of you not in the room, I want you to know that Dr. Harrison left the room shortly after Ms. Merritt spoke, and she left. And as far as I know, they're still out there talking. And so if you are not here seeing that, I just want you to know that's how we respond to those concerns here in Olathe. I could tell a similar story, and I'm not going to, but it just really rocks you when you see a mom coming to speak to us about that. And our whole community should be concerned and aware and do what you can. My segue is to tell you that I represent the board on the Diversity Engagement and Advisory Council that Kathleen Smith is doing amazing work, and the work that she's doing will ripple far outside of this community. So I'm really thankful to serve on that committee. Last year I was on the student subcommittee. This year I'm going to be on the staff subcommittee. And how timely, because with the situations we've had that compare to Ms. Merritt's story, I know my daughter is thankful when she has people who look like her to turn to discuss that with, and we don't have enough, and we know this. So serving on the staff committee for the DEAC, one of our focuses is retention and recruitment of staff of color, and that benefits our students of color and benefits the educating that's going on in our district. I also serve as a representative to the Kansas Association of School Boards, and we have, that's a private institution that supports local school boards in the state of Kansas. They have 100% participation across the state, so that tells you a little bit about the support that they provide. That quarterly meeting was a couple of weeks ago, and it's interesting to be in that space and really good to understand some of the topics that are happening on school boards across the state, but it includes things like, and I think they'll sound familiar, cell phone policies, student engagement, attendance, truancy, our upcoming state legislative session. So we're all kind of talking about the same things. And when you go from Axtell, Kansas to Olathe to Wichita, that's bigger than us, it's always good to get together and understand. And some of those times Olathe is learning at some of these meetings, and so many of the times Olathe is trend-setting with the information that we get to share with other districts. So that makes me proud. Two quick things. Dustin Pence, Olathe North Theater teacher, sent a thank you to several of us, but a thank you for MacBooks, because it will elevate the education that he is doing with his theater students. So I look forward to going to the first show to see how that is. And if this is a safe learning bubble, I'm going to really attempt to say it, because I love what it's about. Maybe somebody else already knows about it. I have up on my screen how to say Elamassini. Anyone? Any of the teachers in the room? Well, I encourage you to go. It is October 24th, 25th, 26th at Olathe North, and we can see these students putting their MacBooks to work. Apparently, it is a play about three very strong women, so I am here for that. Elamassini. We're going to go with that. So anyway, I am thanking Dustin for the thank you. And lastly, I really appreciate Dr. Reeves' report that he sends us every month about learning services and some of the data points that he's noticing. But this was really telling, and we've touched on it tonight. During the first 2 weeks of school, we enrolled 662 multilingual students speaking 48 different languages from 43 countries around the world. That is amazing. I just feel like that is Olathe's superpower. I love our diversity in this community. So thank you for your report, Dr. Reeves. That is all.
Thank you. Just a couple notes. Last week, Santa Fe School had their grand opening that was hosted by the staff and students of that school, attended by some of the board members. And it was a beautiful ceremony. It was really well put on and attended. And part of what Principal Lobel brought up struck me that not every community would invest in replacing an older school in their community. They would build new ones and just leave the old ones to fend for themselves. And he was really excited that the community took it upon themselves to invest in their community. And that struck me because it wasn't something I had really thought about before, and how much Olathe values our history and diversity. I wanted to shout out 8th grader Gabby Walker, who did a phenomenal job speaking as a student representative at the opening, as well as the Cyclone Band, who gave a great impromptu concert at the ceremony with very little warning, apparently. When we did a tour, I was really excited by the inspiring Post-it notes that were on every locker down the hallway. Apparently, the student ambassador said that the school notes are placed by some of the student groups to help grow community and make the back to school a positive experience for everybody. It notes as basic as "you're going to have an awesome day" to "you belong here," to other notes making me realize I'm officially old and out of touch because I have no idea what the slang means. And on a more somber tone, our thoughts are with the community of Barrow County, Georgia today, with the news of the tragic shooting, allegedly by a student at their high school today. I ask that if you have a firearm at home, especially if you have children, please secure them in any way possible. Free trigger locks are available at area hospitals, police stations, and other locations through Project Child Safe. And I'd like to thank the district safety and security staff, as well as our school resource officers, for keeping our kids and staff safe. I know I'm going to go home, wake up my son, and hold him for a bit because I just want to. And I apologize in advance to his teachers tomorrow for my sleepy kid. So, thank you.
Mr. Boyd.
Thank you. To piggyback on Mr. Babbitt's comments, 2 teachers and 4 students walked into a school building this morning and didn't walk out. And that shouldn't be the case. In a country with the amount of resources and intellect that we possess, it just shouldn't happen. An additional 9 lives will forever be changed by the trauma that they experienced this morning. And again, that should not be the case here in this country. At some point, we, the collective community, all of us have to say enough is enough. And I don't know what point that is. I thought we would have been there when we have kindergartners and children's dying, going to school, trying to get an education, but not returning home. That should have been enough. But again, I'll get off my soapbox because Mr. Babbitt covered that. And I don't want to get, upset. So I'll just stop there. My second point, this is a weird one, at least for me it is. September 15th through October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. So if you celebrate that occasion, let me take that back. I ask that we all celebrate that occasion and acknowledge the contributions that community has provided us. Thank you.
Ms. Johan.
Well, thank you, everyone, for all the comments tonight. I think I feel a little bit heavy and somber with all the things that were shared tonight, but I also feel like a mission of what I'm here to do and how I can serve this community. So I just want to say thank you to everyone tonight. Suicide Awareness Month is something that I'm passionate about as well in my professional life. And so I think it's a good time to remember to put that number in your phone. It's really easy to program little numbers like that so you you know it, you have it, if you have a crisis or something. So just do that. I wanted to also say thank you to the team that I got to visit several schools with at the beginning of the school year. What an exciting time. I'll pivot here to my sandwich of exciting stuff. But I went with Dr. Jill Smith, who I think always carries candy. I'm not sure, but she had candy with her everywhere. And Chris Pittman and our wonderful superintendent, Dr. Yeager. And we went to Olathe Northwest. We went to Summit Trail, Canyon Creek, and Fairview. So I just had a fantastic time getting to go into some of our schools, see the teachers at work, students learning, real things happening. So that was a great day, I also got to tour Kids TLC earlier this month. When was that? August, I guess, last month, and learn about their fantastic program and how they collaborate with our school district, and excited to learn more about what they're doing. I thought I had one more comment. I can't be remiss without saying thank you again to Dr. McMullen and Olivia Malone for all of their work with the school bus system. Everybody asked me, how's school going for the kids? Great. It's great. I don't have anything, because they're going to school, they're getting JCPRD in the morning, and they're getting a school bus ride home, and I don't have to worry about anything, and that to me is fantastic. So I want to say thank you to you and your team. I have personally seen lots of great communication, and I know the responsiveness is there. So thank you again, and that's it for me.
I have just a couple, and just in general, what a great start it has been. 3 weeks of school, and thank yous. There are just so many facets with staff in the building, building leaders and teachers and office staff and custodians and all of the individuals who make things go. It requires everyone. Thanks to Matt Johnson for helping take care of our athletes also, because once again we were hit with some horribly hot weather, and to work with our administrators and coaches to keep our kids safe in yet another capacity. The special celebrations that have occurred since school started, with 20 years and 25 years and many more than that. And then as Mr. Babbitt talked about, the beautiful Santa Fe Trail facility, how exciting is it for those kids in that community to have that space to go to every day. Also, it was a month ago that we as a board approved the personal electronic device policy. And I know I'm not telling people anything new because you've been managing it on a daily basis. But thanks to Mr. Albers and Dr. Waters and Dr. Smith and Dr. Harrison for helping our building leaders work through those details, because we know it came late to the start of school. But I know we have talked, and we've heard many positives from kids, parents, and school staff. So thank you for your leadership with that. Also, for those who are maybe watching but not in the room, and those in the room, our first community conversation is September 24th at 9 a.m. right here in this space. So we'd just welcome members of our community to come and chat with us. And again, thanks to all of you for a great start to the school year.
I first want to tell you all you've done a really nice job tonight with the microphone set up. It's been fun to sit in my seat and watch the lights turn green, and I can actually see who's going to speak over here, so I know what's happening. It's really fun that way. But you all have said this well tonight, but this room hasn't been touched in nearly 30 years, and certainly its most public-facing function is the Board of Education meeting once a month. But this room is used all day, every single day, for orientation for new staff, trainings, meetings, and as large as we are as a district, we just don't have enough space for those kinds of things. So this room was actually really causing a lot of challenges for us. I was just thinking, I was in here during a new employee orientation right before we did the renovation, and someone had drug like 3 whiteboards into this room because the technology wasn't doing what it needed to do to put things up for our new staff. And, I just thinking about the first impression we make when new staff comes, this is going to be a lot better than dragging in old whiteboards. So anyway, but thank you to our public for the support as well, and we really appreciate that. But board, great job tonight with the new microphone setup and all of that. So I also, the very first thing I wrote on my note for tonight was amazing start to the school year. This is my 4th year as superintendent, starting the school year, and I've said this, I should stop saying it to people because something may happen, but it has been the smoothest start yet. And, I think about the magnitude of change that has led into this school year in terms of schedule changes and cell phone policy and all the things that come with the beginning of the year. And man, our staff and our community have just done an amazing job. It's been great. We have, it's funny that you mentioned the traffic. One of you mentioned that, but just the traffic in my house is so much more peaceful every morning with the spread out times, which has been great. So, and I'm probably not alone in that, but I think about our partners at JCPRD who are serving several hundred kids more than they did last year, and DS Bus Lines, who has really met the challenge of putting all of our services back in place. And those things don't happen without really good partners, but also staff that's working really hard to keep our foot on the gas with those things. And I know that it's not perfect for every family. There are families that are challenged by the changes we've made, and we continue to try to support all families in those situations. But overall, what a great start to the school year. I shared this with our staff in an email last week, but do you know in the first 12 days of school, our food production staff served over 200,000 meals. I mean, just think about that. Bring it on, Taco Bell. Who's going to be able to meet those numbers? Our folks have just, not that Taco Bell's our comparison, the things just come to my mind. So that's great. Thank you. The memes are starting on my phone right now. Thank you, friends on SLT. I appreciate that. Some great news already. There's the first one right there. And it wasn't from Dr. McMullen. But some great things that have already happened, not only this start of the school year that's been so positive for so many of our kids and our staff, and the amazing things that have happened. Last week, we found out Olathe East has been named Acacia Performance School of Excellence. And you know that Olathe East is known so well for fine arts and the things that happen there. It was so cool last week to be with leaders from Acacia to come and surprise the staff with "You are the best of the best," and the first school in our district that's received that recognition, and we think the first school on the east side of the state, which is pretty cool too. So I'm so proud of them. And then you all well know, because we've been sharing it, the news of the Forbes recognition. This is the 3rd Forbes recognition we've had in 3 years, and to be number 7 in terms of best employer in the state of Kansas, the only school district in the top 10, that's something we should really be proud of. And I say every time we receive a Forbes recognition, we don't even know it's happening. There's awards and things school districts and businesses can apply for where you can get recognized. They surveyed 160,000 people in the state of Kansas. They talked to current employees, past employees, and so to receive continued recognition that way is just so significant in terms of the people that we have working in this great organization and the support that we have as a community. Those of you who have lived in Olathe for a long time, or those of you that are new to Olathe, there's a really big event happening this week that really centers around Grange Pups and Walking Tacos. Our bands will also be there, and that's the Old Settlers Day Parade. And in true fashion, our schools just do an amazing job of getting our young people out and supporting that, and a thing that just feels reminiscent of a quality time in America, which is really fun. But so we'll have lots of kids out there and lots of staff out there. But I always say, everybody be careful. Tomorrow night, Thursday night is wristband night, typically at the carnival, which means it's really busy, and that's usually where the stuff that's not great kind of happens too. So students make good choices, staff make good choices while you're there. Have fun, be engaged in Olathe, but an exciting weekend with Old Settlers for us and our community this weekend. So those are my comments.
What's a Grange Cup?
Well, Mr. Babbitt, that could be highly controversial. People from
my comments.
Some people might call it similar to a corn dog, but true Olathe Old Settlers would be offended if we called it a corn dog. So I'm looking for someone to jump up and save us. What is a... It looks like a corn dog, but it's clearly not.
Okay. We do have the first executive session, and I would welcome a motion.
25.
Oh, much time?
Let's do 25.
I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of consulting with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privilege an attorney-client relationship under COMA, and that the board return to the regular meeting at 8:55 p.m. I cut us 2 minutes off this one. Second?
Second. Motion by Ms. Steele, a second by Mr. Boyd.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Johan?
Yes.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes.
Dr. Yurkovich?
Yes. Motion passes 6-0.